The Anatomy of a Timeline Shift, October 18, 2016. By D.L. Zeta. Website, www.celestialvision.org. The Anatomy of a Timeline Shift. The more I explore timeline shifts, the more excited I become. A timeline shift involves perceiving, imagining, sensing, feeling, visualizing the realities you choose and then energizing those realities by connecting with their feeling state. Once this is done, you then go about your business with a knowing, trusting and acceptance that this reality is already a part of you. You may look around you and observe the realities of the past, but you know that within you, you have made the shift to a new timeline. There is a built-in lag time between an inner reality shift and its appearance in physical reality. This is why the new reality you've adopted takes some time to appear in your physical reality. Once we've made the shift within ourselves, that's all that matters. The new reality is a done deal. As long as we can remain calm and knowing about this, sooner or later our inner and physical realities will align. If we allow ourselves to get caught up in thoughts of doubt, we undermine this alignment. The Timeline Shift Theory. The Timeline Shift Theory says that an infinite number of timelines exist within our energetic field. Because these realities are already in existence, all we have to do is to perceive the timeline we prefer and shift to it by adopting the focus self that belongs to the timeline of our new identity. The timeline shift technique doesn't require us to create a new reality from whole cloth. If we can imagine, perceive, sense this new reality, it already exists. If we are overly identified with physical reality, the what you see is all there is perspective. Using this technique is akin to bending over backwards and touching your nose to your toes. Just as we would have to develop an amazing level of physical flexibility to achieve this yogic feat, we must develop a masterful level of inner flexibility to consciously release our present moment identity or focus self. This is truly stepping into the unknown. When we adopt a new focus self identity, we're creating wholesale change at the quantum level. We don't know ahead of time all the large and small changes the shift will bring. It requires surrendering our old identities, letting go of the death grip control we have on our present reality and going along for an amazing ride into a new reality unfolding moment by moment. Potential stumbling blocks. As I began working with energizing timelines, I began to identify some of the potential stumbling blocks. In my case, I realized parts of myself held reservations about the seemingly magical technique. One part of me felt it was too easy. I recognized this as a part of myself that had been indoctrinated early on in the idea that life is hard. With this belief in place, it's hard for me to accept that life can happen easily and effortlessly. I have begun working with the part of me still invested in this belief. The new belief I'm adopting in its place is that new realities can happen easily and effortlessly, as long as they are aligned with my spiritual purpose. I'll return to spiritual purpose in a moment. Another part of me wants everything to be measurable from a physical, scientific perspective. This part of me expected the timeline shift to be physically visible the moment it was made. If I'm energizing a timeline where I'm living in New York City, for example, this part of me expects me to suddenly be there the moment I've made the internal shift. Due to the lag time I mentioned above, this is unlikely to be the case. It's important to keep in mind that physical reality is only the toenail of our existence. The way realities manifest on Earth at this time, it will almost always lag behind the reconfiguration of inner reality. In addition, when we refer to physical reality to see if the shift has occurred, this is once more working in reverse and taking our clues about reality from the physical. If the shift has been made within us, then it has been made, regardless of what our external reality is saying at the moment. Now that I'm aware part of me holds these expectations, I can begin to work with them. One way I'm transforming them is to get this part of myself to agree to the fact that I can intuitively perceive the shift as soon as it occurs. This effectively changes the instrument of measurement from the physical reality to the intuitive perception of the shift. To me, this makes perfect sense. If our perceptual skills are finely tuned, we are able to recognize that, while physical reality still looks the same, we have shifted to a different timeline. From this moment on, we will make decisions from the perspective of our new identity self. Because these new choices carry us along a different timeline, we will have different experiences in this timeline. Our vibration is different along this timeline. We magnetize to us different people and possibilities along this timeline. By shifting to this new timeline, we have effectively transformed our destiny. Another possible stumbling block is to hold on to unresolved energy around the old timeline. If you're holding on to negative emotions about the old timeline, or if you're seeking to escape from some aspect of it, this can bind you to the old reality until it is released. It's next to impossible to release what we resist. Once we've visited any possible stumbling blocks, we're ready to begin the timeline shift process. The timeline shift process. The first step is to choose a reality you want to shift to. You most likely have given a great deal of thought to how you would like to change your present reality. Call up these images now of your ideal reality and fill in the details. In a quiet meditative state, align with the timeline reality that you have chosen. Allow yourself to be filled with this reality. See it. Feel it. Look at the world from the perspective of the self who is experiencing this timeline. From this point on, act from this self's perspective. This is not acting as if or seeing yourself in this reality, which would imply you're still outside it. It's important to completely align with the new identity. After you have shifted to this new timeline and are completely aligned with it, having adopted it as your new identity, open your eyes and look around you. Yes, you're seeing the same physical reality you saw before closing your eyes. But if you've done the timeline shift process correctly, you're looking at the old reality with new eyes, the eyes of the new focused self. From this point on, you will begin making choices and acting from the perspective of this new focused self and its timeline. If you feel you were not successful in making the shift to the new timeline, you may want to revisit the list of potential stumbling blocks and see if any of these are interfering with your purpose. Timeline shifts and spiritual purpose. Earlier I mentioned spiritual purpose. I want to close with a few words on its significance in making timeline shifts. It's been my own experience that moving to a new timeline that's aligned with my spiritual purpose is much easier than moving to a timeline that is less aligned. Many of us hold the intention to always be moving toward fulfilling our spiritual purpose. From this perspective, trying to energize a timeline not aligned with our spiritual purpose would be like trying to drive a car with the brakes on. May the shift be with you. For more on timeline, see Timeline and Identity Shifts: The New Signs of Reality Creation by D.L. Zeta.